Hello and welcome to Jim and Ben's Movie Adventures. My name is Jim and with me today is...
Jake Sully.
Oh, you put the ooly on it.
Ooly. Ooh, I put the
That makes it
ooly on
better.
it.
Because this week we watched Avatar. No, not The Last Airbender. 2009's Avatar from auteur, shall we say, director James Cameron. And today we are going to unpack why this movie has made almost $3 billion at the box office. But before we do so, let me give you a quick synopsis of the events of the film, written, might I add, with completely my own brain and no AI assistance. So I hope you like it. You ready for this?
I'm so proud
In
of
the
you.
future, in the future, paraplegic ex-Marine Jake Sully, or Sully, as Ben says, is given the opportunity to travel to the distant jungle moon of Pandora to run security for a hybrid operation of strip mining and scientific discovery. What a mix! When he arrives, he is granted the use of an avatar, a genetically grown body of one of the native species called the Na'vi, 9-foot tall humanoid creatures with cat-like features. Jake's assignment is to protect the scientists as they conduct research on the planet while reporting back to Colonel Quaritch regarding the military weaknesses of the native Na'vi tribe. As tensions escalate between the miners and the Na'vi, Jake falls in love with the Na'vi woman Neytiri and is forced to choose a side, ultimately choosing the Na'vi and leading a rebellion to send the invading humans back to Earth. Mic drop. That's what happens. You want to give us some facts about Avatar so that we can then dive into the specifics?
I absolutely can, and I've just realized I forgot to replace what year this was released from the last movie we did, because
It
this
was
definitely wasn't
2009.
19... I was going to say, definitely wasn't 1991. So, released in 2009, directed by James Cameron, screenplay, James Cameron, cinematography by Mauro Fior, starring Sam Worthington, Zoe Saldana, Michelle Rodriguez, Sigourney Weaver, Stephen Lang, and Giovanni Ribisi. Music by James Horner. Now, budget. We were talking about making lots of money, so here we go. Budget, $237 million or thereabouts. Box office, 785 million domestic. That was just during its release, its first release. International, $201 billion, which brings us to a worldwide 2,923,710,708. If you're not sure, that's a lot of money.
That's
Runtime,
yeah, just look, we'll talk more about the budget because there are a couple of
yeah,
specific
yeah,
caveats with it that you sort of need to be aware of, but there's really
yeah,
nothing taking away from the fact that those numbers are astronomical?
yeah. Runtime of 162 minutes. So,
So,
I want to say this is a good movie, but it is also the most unoriginal original movie of all time. like,
yeah,
like the originality in this movie is its setting, is its technology, is its what it's kind of visually putting on the screen, right? It is imagination mixed with technology, mixed with willpower, and it is brilliant. But the story is a story you've seen in a million movies before. It is Dances with Wolves. It is The Last Samurai. It is a billion movies before this, and that's not a bad thing. It's just something we should recognize as they've put a lot of effort into the visual. They put a lot of effort into how this movie looks and is presented and kind of captures your imagination. But the story's ho hum.
yeah, which is kind of crazy when you look at the cultural touchstone of this movie. The idea
Yeah.
that and it is a movie that kind of, in a lot of ways, the idea of sequels to it are going to be more interesting than the story that you got on the first outing. And all of that sort of sounds like you're taking away from the movie. But look, it is a visually incredible movie, it is a technologically incredible movie. And it's also this bizarre thing whereby the familiarity allows it to operate in all of these different markets worldwide because people already know the story. Like it's such a tale as old as time in terms of what we're actually doing. So it's able to play in multiple different languages, and people don't have to worry about whether or not they can keep up with the dense dialogue because you can get by on visuals alone here. It's not, something that is going to require, it's not like an Avengers situation where you're required to see 5 other films or 20 other films before you watch this one. It just is a standalone feature. And I do think
I want to
that
clarify too.
yeah,
I think it's on purpose that the story is
oh,
the way it is.
for sure. Like, absolutely.
It's so that Pandora is the story.
Yeah. I think I would
Like
totally
it's the
agree with
attraction.
you. Yeah, I don't think that they, in a lot of ways, it's like Star Wars, whereby the story of Star Wars is this sort of standard story. I'm talking A New Hope here, and it's something that you can put in different clothes, and then you can release it to the audience in these different ways. And obviously, what they really did with Avatar was they sold the world of Pandora, and they sold the technological achievements and advancements in realizing Pandora. And that was why they said, hey, you've got to go see this. This is an event film. This is going to be something built for the big screen. They really pushed 3D technology, which was something that it was kind of amazing because this movie was one of the new wave of 3D, and it was in a lot of ways, because it took so long to develop, it was kind of the driving force behind bringing 3D to our cinema screens again at that time. And yet other films had come out just before it using its technology before it was even released to sort of
Yeah.
prime the audience for this 3D release. And then it took so long between sequels that 3D had completely died again as a fad before its sequel was released. And I'm like, that is insane. But also, that's something that I want to talk about because, look, $3 billion is nothing to sniff at. This was an insanely successful movie, but you also have to take into account the fact that when they released these 3D movies back in 2009, 2010, they were radically inflating the ticket price to see it in 3D. And particularly with Avatar, there was a huge push to say, oh, this is way better in 3D. So they did get something of an artificial bump off that 3D experience or gimmick, if you like. So, which again added to the 3D, added to the event feeling of the film. Was the idea that you can't get this at home. They still weren't really making 3D TVs at that point in time as well for people to watch it at home. So it was like, you have to see it. You've got to see it. You've got to come see it. So very, very clever marketing. But again, you're right. It's not just marketing because the story had to be eternal, universal in order to play in all these markets. And the actual world building had to be absolutely world class in order for it to work. And it is.
And I also want to point out, like we talk about the inflation of possibly the box office. I'll also point out that the budget of 237 million, that is no way a real number. Like if you think
The
about, they had to make technology to make
R&D.
this film. The R&D for this movie is 1 billion and something for sure, like over time. Like this isn't something that just happened overnight. They didn't just make these cameras. They were developing, testing, doing all this sort of stuff, creating basically a whole new version of the cinema industry to make these films. So I do want to say that yes, maybe from when they started filming this film to ending filming this film, it was 237 million. But there was a lot of industry money in this film. There was a lot of James Cameron money in this film.
And
And I also want to point
also,
out, I've never thought about it before. He is absolutely an auteur.
yeah. Oh, really? You haven't thought
You,
about that? Yeah.
oh, well, no, like you think of the movies he makes, they're kind of these big, showy, kind of crazy movies, and it just for some reason didn't. Those two puzzle pieces didn't click together in my brain.
Yeah, particularly on the behind the scenes technology side of things. Cameron's always been
Oh,
really
yeah,
revolutionary in that mix. So I do think as well, not just with the camera technology, the idea of the performance capture that they were doing, yes, built on the bones of characters like Davy Jones from Pirates of the Caribbean and then Gollum, obviously, before that. But the pipelines that they were creating in their software packages for Avatar were again completely custom in order to realize the avatars themselves in the world of Pandora. And I think one of the things that continues to impress me about Avatar and its sequels now is the idea that Pandora is entirely animated. And that
yeah,
is just wild when you think about it. Like, yes, the Na'vi, obviously, their performance capture, they are people, in a volume soundstage. Now, I'm using all of these buzzwords, right? If you're not a huge movie person, and we do have some people who listen or even watch who like our podcast because they aren't necessarily movie people. So if you think of this thing, if I was to explain a volume, it's basically a warehouse, and
yeah.
it's got a bunch of people in what look like wetsuits with dots all over them. It looks ridiculous. And they're shot not with cameras, actually, but with arrays that pick up the points of data on their body to track their movement and their facial features. And they've also got face cams as well. And what they do then is they take all of that data, and the 3D artists get to work on interpreting that performance and putting it into a completely CGI character. So that's one thing. That's about the actual characters, but then the entire world, all the jungles, all of the floating mountains, all of the rivers, and they're all completely CGI as well. And in a way, that's almost more impressive to me than the performance capture of the characters, because that is the part that I have to keep reminding myself, none of this is real, none of this is real, none of this is real.
It's real.
And it's
Like
hard.
as real yeah, as real as it gets is like you can watch some behind the scenes stuff, right? And like a really good example is when they're having to do impact, right? To a person. So say for example, when they're falling through the trees and she's teaching them to catch the leaves and stuff. There's footage of those sort of scenes where they have someone on a wire and they're lowering them down and they're bumping just a foam block to kind of give the body the pushback it needs. That's as real as anything gets in this movie as far as what they're shooting. As Jim says, this world is it's how computer games are made in a strange way, right? Like computer games have now adapted making stuff because of Avatar. Like they have people in these suits, they do the capture like they do, and then the characters can do what they want. So like the far-reaching implications of the technology in this film for entertainment is staggering. Um, I do want to point out too, like I can't imagine acting in that. I can't wrap my head around how to do that, right? You've got a wetsuit on, you've got dots all over yourself, you've got a camera sitting like here with a wire to your face. Um, it would be a really weird thing to start doing. And
I
it,
think
it
about
doesn't seem
like
to affect this film.
black box theater or things like that. And I would imagine after a couple of hours, it would just feel
You'd
normal because
acclimatize for sure.
you got your scene partner, you're doing the scene, and you're just playing the emotion of it. I kind of think it'd be fun in that way because you can do it as many takes as you want. There's not pressure to all the usual film acting things where it's like, well,
Reset the scene.
got to reset. We got to time the explosion and make sure you get it in one. Like none of that. It's just we're acting and we're trying to be in the scene with the scene partners. So, but yeah, it's definitely different. And I think as well, one of the tricky things is there's a lot of hype on Avatar, and it's in a way it's almost frustrating because the hype is deserved, but also it's simultaneously overblown. it's both all at once. It's deserved and it's overblown. Like all of the things that we're seeing, for instance, like performance capture, it's not revolution. Like it is
No.
revolutionary, but it isn't. It's built on the
Yeah.
bones of stuff we've seen before, and we'd been actually iterating and evolving over time. 3D, same deal. We'd seen 3D before, but they're using a new system to actually deliver it to us. Completely CGI characters. We've seen that before. Completely CGI environments. We've seen that before. But we've never actually seen it all executed to this level in this way. And it's a real compliment to the film that I'm saying that, and this was 2009, and it
Yeah.
still very much holds up on a visual fidelity level. Now, can you see improvements between this film and its sequel, which at this stage is just Way of Water? Yes, you absolutely can, but at the same time, it's incredibly impressive that to do this in almost every scene for the runtime of this film and have it look as good as it does is pretty incredible. But I feel like we've done technology, 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 and we haven't done character, we haven't done story. And
Yeah.
look, other than to say, hey, we've seen that before, but it's tricky. Like, what did you think of this? If we put the technology aside, if we
Yep.
put all of the revolutionary stuff aside, what did you think of this when you saw this in 2009?
If you When I saw this in 2009, as I said, I think I was in London at the time. I think I went to what's the big theater there? It was like
Odeon, I
the
reckon.
Odeon. I went to the
Yeah.
Odeon, so it was this massive crowd, and it was an old style theater, so it's not stadium seating; it's just that kind of rake back seating, and it was a magical experience. Like that's the way I'll describe it. Just because everyone was there to buy in. It was a packed theater. Everyone had their glasses on and everyone was kind of ready. If you separate that, the event, the technology, the spectacular visuals from the scene, and you made this movie, it's a mediocre film with some good performances in it. Because you imagine like yeah, it wouldn't be special. It just wouldn't. Like you could you people would literally just say you've made Dances with Wolves again, and they did joke about that anyway. Um, the plot and that sort of stuff. All the magic comes from the location, in my opinion. That's not taking away from anything from the actors. Sigourney Weaver does a fantastic job in this film. Sam Worthington does Sam Worthington stuff. Like he's not like a wide ranged human being in this film. Zoe Saldana. It's hard to separate her acting from what Natiri is. And then the rest of the humans in this film are kind of just doing their thing. So yeah, if you go with that caveat, it very much is just a ho hum mediocre film of like natives versus colonizers.
Yeah, I look, when
And
I saw it,
now I feel sad.
when I saw it, I was simultaneously impressed with the technology that was on display, and yet the entire time I was watching it, my thought that I just kept returning to over and over again is I want to see the next thing. I know this thing. I want to see the next thing. And I just kept thinking that. I just was sitting in the cinema going, I'm struggling to really fully deeply engage with this story because I know this story. I want to see the next story because that might be one that I haven't seen and I want to enjoy this world. And it's an interesting debate. Did we need this first one? I think the filmmakers would argue that to orient the audience and to do the global box office success that it had and play in all those markets, maybe we needed this version of the first Avatar movie to get to what we might do later. Of course, we'll never know, but I do think that is a worthy defense of the film, saying we had to do this one first. We had to do it this way. We had to do a self contained because we didn't know if it was going to be successful. And I do actually appreciate that in a lot of ways. They didn't actually drop all of these plot threads that meant we absolutely needed a sequel. It was something that could have stood alone
The
if
movie was
they
done.
never, yeah, if they never made a sequel to this, or five sequels, however many they're doing now. This movie could have stood alone, and I think there's some admiration in that. We didn't get a cliffhanger off this first one that required us to get a green light on another one. So yeah, but at the same time, is that just a long way of me saying I didn't really like it? Maybe. Like it's but at the same time, they did have the foundation. They had the characters. I did like the characters. I did feel invested in Jake and Natiri as a couple and as the storytelling drive of the films. I did like Sigourney Weaver. I did. Who else? I suppose I
I mean,
quite like
Giovanni Ribisi is always great.
He's great. We're not talking about the sequel here, but I missed him in Way of Water, to be honest. Like, so, and actually, a little bit of trivia, which I don't know if you know this, but I noticed it on this latest rewatch of Avatar, and then went and researched it because I was like, I think that's a change, and sure enough, at the end of the film, when they send the humans back to Earth, uh, Giovanni Ribisi, what I remembered in the theatrical cut or in every other version of the movie, was that he uh, sort of is in the line of humans as
Yeah,
the Navi is standing there and he walks off. But when I rewatched it this time, he actually
he
steps out
says,
of the line and he
yeah,
says something to Jake, and it's something like, this isn't over or something. I don't know the exact
you know
line.
they'll come
And I
back,
literally
basically.
was like, that's not it. Like, I've seen this movie a few times. That doesn't happen in this movie. And I went and researched it, and sure enough, I think when they did the 4K transfer or remaster or whatever it was a few years ago, they just added that moment in as a little bit of a sequel tease. And I went, that
Yeah,
is sort of an odd thing to add in. It's a tiny line. It's not doesn't really change anything, but they felt they needed to add it. They George Lucased it. That is the
which just kind of
special edition.
it just connects the two films.
Yeah,
That
it just
little,
connects it a little bit. And I don't mind it, but I did just go, wait, that's an ad. That's different. So I thought that was interesting to me.
I think the best character in this film is our antagonist. Is our what'd you say his name was? I didn't even realize he had a name.
Colonel
Colonel
Quaritch.
Quaritch.
Yeah.
He chews the scenery in this film in a wonderful way.
Well,
Like
Stephen
he,
Lang. Stephen
oh,
Lang is magical in this movie
yeah,
because I agree with you completely. His
he's the one
ability.
character that's got texture.
Well, it's
Like
just a watchable magnetic performance, and he's
yeah,
doing the same sort of, I guess, standard beats as everybody else, but he manages to do it with such swagger in every moment that he's on screen that you just want to watch him act. And it is a delight to watch him, as you say, chew the scenery.
he gives that vibe of almost like a Brando, and like he's seen stuff. He
Yeah.
gets it. He's the one who understands what's out there. But then they obviously don't go that dark with it. But like he's got that vibe to him of like he's got the scar and he won't get rid of the scar because that reminds him what's out there. And like you just like it's almost a perfect, like I'm not saying it's Oscar worthy, but it's a perfect execution of that role
It is.
because the film really needed a human who was heightened. It
Yes.
needed a big human because we had big aliens and we had big things, but we without him the movie didn't have a larger than life human, and they really gave us that in him, and it really kind of like if you think about your characters on a scale of balance, right? And you have the Navi. Without him, the Navi would just tip those scales like that. Like they're the interesting thing in the film, but he brings it right back and makes it kind of work because all the other
Yes.
humans are scientists or they're kind of like admin people and they're very basic and they're very kind of calm, but he is the energy that the humans have, and it's
Just
brilliant.
the idea that he is in this uh, sort of, I don't know, dropship bomber, and he's got a mug of coffee, and he's sipping this coffee as they send these rockets into the tree, and he's like, "This is Papa Dragon." I'm like, "This is brilliant! Like, this is so fun to like." It's terrible. He's an awful character. Don't get me wrong in terms of what he's doing, but from a performance aspect, from just a choices, and I don't know if it's scripted, if it wasn't, but the idea that he's casually sipping his coffee as they do this like, it's something where you go, that's a character, that's a villain, that's someone
It's
who
a
it's delightfully easy for us as the audience to go, get that guy. That guy's
yeah.
bad, and it's done with such swagger that it is wonderful to watch. And I don't mind that they brought him back for the sequels, because I'm there for that performance all day.
And I think the brilliance of it is like normally a character like that is that and then not capable. He's
Mm,
both. Like
yeah.
he is a genuine threat. Like he's like, colonization is good because humans are good and aliens are bad, and this is what we're going to do because this is my job. But I love my job. Like it is really cool. I thought it was, and we don't want to talk too much sequel. I thought it was kind of weird that they brought him back, but again, I liked that they brought him back.
Well, his performance is so strong that I don't mind a little bit of plot gymnastics to get him back in the
Yeah,
game. Do you know what I mean? So I also really like Giovanni Ribisi's character, and I hope he comes back in future sequels as well, because I liked what he was doing. I liked his sort of tired administrator who doesn't really want to think about it, but also won't fully take responsibility for what it is that he's doing. The idea that he needs to get the job done and report to the company. He's not completely soulless, but he's also like, let's just not think about it too much, and I'll leave it with this Quaritch guy, and he's kind of going to just sort it out for me. And I don't really want to get in the I don't really want to get in this too much. And of course, he is in it. He's the one actually
yeah.
greenlighting these decisions. That was a really interesting dynamic that doesn't get a lot of screen time, and I get why. It's an epic movie. We want to spend our time on Pandora with Jake and Neytiri, not with the administrator as they decide to fight the natives or not. But it was a little tease of an interesting kind of character bit around the peripheral of the movie.
The reason it's interesting is if you've ever worked a corporate job, you've worked with that guy.
Yeah.
You've worked with the guy who's been in the system so long that he knows the stuff that is not good, but he just accepts it. He's like, I'm a role player. I'm playing my role. We can't stop it. We can't change it. So we might as well just go along with it and get the best out of it we can. And even him at the start of the film, he's like, if they just move, like why don't just move and we won't hurt them and we'll get the thing and then we're done. And he doesn't believe that himself, I'm sure. Like he goes, no, we'll keep going, we'll keep doing stuff. But he's just like, he's so kind of genuinely tiredly frustrated with the whole situation. He's like, if everyone just did what they were supposed to do, this wouldn't be hard. And
Yeah.
I've worked with that guy a million times.
Yeah. It's like I said, I think it's an interesting character. I'd love to see that a little bit more in future sequels, but who knows if he'll come back or if he won't. So
Two story things I want to bring up just before we kind of dive into other things. And these are like the whole MacGuffin things of them all. Unobtainium, man. I know it's been beaten to death, but man, I wish they could have done something better. Use a real element that we'd run out on Earth or, whatever. But unobtainium, even though it is kind of like a real, not real thing, and it feels wonky in this film. It feels like a placeholder in the dialogue that never got replaced. And the other thing I want to mention is Chekhov's giant bird. Um, like as soon as you see that bird, and I forget what it's called, but it's the bigger version of what they fly, like the shadow that you see before you die
Yeah,
bird.
Last Shadow. I can't really
Yeah.
remember either. It's a tuk
But
or
as
something.
soon
I
as
don't know.
they show that, and then they tell the little story of like, oh, we once had a chief that rode that. You're like,
Yeah,
well, he's gonna ride that, right? Like, like
it's also
it's
it's an amazing sort of narrative convenience. And look, the movie, it's 162 minutes long already. So by the time you get to the finale, they do basically need a video game cheat code in order for Jake to unite the clans. And the giant bird is it, because and I get it. I'm also not really look. You say I'm like, yeah, look, it's a cheat, and unobtainium does feel like a placeholder, but at the same time, it's like we don't have time to do a months long campaign at that point in the movie where he rebuilds the trust of all of the tribesmen. We've got to get something solid quickly. So yeah, I'll take it. I'll take the giant bird. You know.
the one thing I like about that is usually that moment is treated as a moment of destiny. He was always destined to pair up with that giant bird, right? In this movie, it's not. It's a tactical decision on his part. He goes, I know how to unite them. I'm going to tackle this bird out of the sky and make it mine. Like, it's not a destiny moment. It's not a magical moment. It is a character choice. It's not like a Deus Ex Machina in a way that it just appears and helps. It kind of like he makes it happen. So it does take the edge off that moment nicely in this movie. And I would say that's kind of the theme of this film, right? There are a lot of moments that are moments we've seen in films a million times before, but through Cameron's choices, the edge gets taken off. It doesn't feel sharp and it doesn't poke against you. You just acknowledge that you've seen it before and you move on because he's rounded that edge, whether it's with the setting of Pandora or a story element or a character choice. Like, this movie is ultimately just super consumable. It is the starting pill to get you into this universe, as we've mentioned a few times. And that is ultimately the cinematic genius of this film. Add in James Horner's score, which is mind-blowing.
I actually think
Like,
it's one of his best, and he's got a lot of good
yeah,
ones. But this
he's
was
a legend.
I do think this was one of James Horner's best scores. There are, and the thing is, there are at least three themes that are instantly hummable, recognizable from the movie, and that to me is always where you go, oh, that's a good one, you know.
But yeah, look, I'll just round out by going, hey, like, it's cliche, but it's really good use of cliche. It is a good movie. Um, in so much so that I think Way of Water story wise is a better movie.
Yeah, I
And the
agree. I agree.
technology's better again, but like, it still doesn't hold the same magic as this film because it's the second.
I don't know. That's a really hard one for me. Like I really enjoy Way of Water
It's
in
a great
so
movie.
in so many ways. I think it's a lot better than this movie. There's I don't know. There's more complexity. There's more places to go. There's much more there that interests me. While at the same time, it's got some flaws of its own. So I don't know. Maybe we'll get to Way of Water at some point.
But yeah,
But
I'm sure we
look,
will.
let's bring this home. Why don't you tell the good people of the interwebs where they can find any more of our podcasts that they might want to watch or listen to, and then you can tell me what we're watching next week.
Last podcast I flubbed this, so here we go. If you want to see more of what we do, Jim and Ben's Movie Adventures, YouTube, iTunes, and Spotify. You type that in, you'll find what we've done. We have a really good back catalogue now. If you think, oh, I'd love to see if these guys have talked about this movie, have a look. There's a good chance we have at this point. If we haven't talked about this movie, use those comment sections. Let us know what we should watch next. Let us know what your favorite film is. Let us know what, maybe it's Dances with Wolves. You never know.
I don't
Um,
want to watch
if you want to
Dances with
follow,
Wolves, man.
sounds like Jim's about to be upset.
uh,
And no, We're not watching Dances with Wolves next. If you want to follow us on any sort of social media, you can do so at Jim_and_Ben on Instagram and Jim and Ben's Movie Adventures on TikTok. Now, how do we follow up Avatar? How do we zig? Do we zag? Do we follow in a linear path? This is something I've been battling with over the last 2 weeks. And I've actually decided to keep it simple. I've chosen a movie, and I do want to say, your mind already might be going there. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry to you, to the listeners, to the watchers out there. But I think we need to do a battle of the avatars.
Oh, no. No. No.
So we're going to watch
I don't want it.
M. Night Shyamalan's Avatar: The Last Airbender. Maybe, and I don't say this lightly, the worst adaptation of all time.
Oh boy. I don't want to do that. Oh, look, if it wasn't a requirement for this podcast, okay. I better mentally prepare
Are you
to
excited,
watch
Jim?
Avatar: The Last Airbender next. But look, if you are at all interested,
I feel like I've really
you
brought
can watch
this
along
down.
with us, and we will see you in another couple of weeks to give you our thoughts on M. Night Shyamalan's Avatar: The Last Airbender. Until then, I see you, everybody, which is
Thanks,
a
guys.
thing
Have a good
from
one.
the Avatar movie, if you don't know what that is.